Section 1, Introduction, the urgency of now. The year is 2024. We stand at a crossroads facing a future fraught with uncertainty. Our civilization, a complex web of interconnected systems, is under immense strain. Climate change, economic instability, pandemics, nuclear proliferation, and political fractures. These are not mere challenges, they are existential threats, capable of unraveling the fabric of our world. The urgency of our situation cannot be overstated. We are living in a time of unprecedented interconnectedness, where a crisis in one part of the world can quickly cascade into a global catastrophe. The COVID-19 pandemic served as a stark reminder of our vulnerability, exposing the fragility of our globalized systems and the speed at which chaos can spread. Yet, amidst these looming threats, there is also hope. We possess the knowledge, the technology, and the capacity for cooperation needed to avert disaster. The choice we make today will determine the fate of our civilization. Will we succumb to the pressures, or will we rise to the challenge, forging a path towards a more sustainable and resilient future? The stakes are high, the time is short, and the need for action is immediate. This is the defining challenge of our time. Section 2, the looming shadow of climate change. Climate change is no longer a distant threat. It is a present reality. Rising global temperatures, extreme weather events, and sea level rise are already impacting communities worldwide. The scientific consensus is clear. Human activity is the primary driver of these changes, and the consequences will be severe if we fail to act decisively. The impacts of climate change are multifaceted and far-reaching. Extreme heat waves can lead to widespread crop failures, food shortages, and social unrest. Rising sea levels threaten coastal communities, displacing millions and causing untold economic damage. Intense storms and floods can cripple infrastructure, disrupt supply chains, and trigger humanitarian crises. The urgency of addressing climate change cannot be overstated. It is a global crisis that demands a global response. We must transition away from fossil fuels, invest in renewable energy sources, and adopt sustainable practices across all sectors of society. The longer we delay, the more severe the consequences will be, and the harder it will be to avert catastrophic outcomes. Section 3, the tremors of economic instability. Our global economy, a complex network of interconnected markets and financial systems, is facing a confluence of challenges. Rising inflation, supply chain disruptions, and widening inequality are creating economic instability, eroding trust in institutions, and fueling social unrest. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed the fragility of our globalized economy. Lockdowns and border closures disrupted supply chains, leading to shortages of essential goods and price hikes. The pandemic also exacerbated existing inequalities, pushing millions into poverty and widening the gap between the rich and the poor. These economic challenges are further compounded by geopolitical tensions, trade wars, and the rise of protectionist policies. The resulting uncertainty and volatility create a breeding ground for instability, making it harder for governments to respond effectively to crises and address long-term challenges. Section 4, Pandemics. the invisible enemy. The COVID-19 pandemic served as a stark reminder of our vulnerability to infectious diseases. The rapid spread of the virus across the globe, overwhelming healthcare systems and causing widespread economic disruption, highlighted the interconnected nature of our world and the speed at which a health crisis can escalate into a global catastrophe. The threat of pandemics is not new. Throughout history, infectious diseases have repeatedly ravaged human populations, shaping the course of civilizations. The Black Death in the 14th century wiped out a third of Europe's population, while the 1918 influenza pandemic killed an estimated 50 million people worldwide. The emergence of new and drug-resistant pathogens, coupled with the ease of global travel, makes the threat of pandemics more acute than ever before. We must strengthen our public health infrastructure, invest in disease surveillance and early warning systems, and develop robust response mechanisms to contain outbreaks before they spiral out of control. Section 5, the nuclear sword of Damocles. The threat of nuclear war, a specter that haunted the world during the Cold War, has reemerged as a major concern in recent years. The proliferation of nuclear weapons, the modernization of existing arsenals, and rising geopolitical tensions have increased the risk of accidental or intentional nuclear conflict, with potentially catastrophic consequences for humanity. The destructive power of nuclear weapons is unparalleled. A single nuclear detonation can obliterate an entire city, killing hundreds of thousands instantly, and leaving behind a legacy of radioactive fallout that contaminates the environment for generations. A full-scale nuclear war would result in a global nuclear winter, plunging the planet into darkness and causing widespread famine. The risk of nuclear war is exacerbated by the erosion of international arms control agreements, the development of new and more sophisticated nuclear weapons, and the growing mistrust between nuclear armed states. We must work to strengthen international cooperation, reduce nuclear arsenals, and prevent the further spread of these weapons of mass destruction. Section 6, political fault lines. Political instability, characterized by social unrest, erosion of democratic norms, and rising authoritarianism, is a growing threat to global security and stability. The rise of nationalism, populism, and extremism is fueling divisions within and between nations, making it harder to address collective challenges and threatening the very foundations of global cooperation. The drivers of political instability are complex and multifaceted. Economic inequality, social injustice, and the failure of governments to meet the needs of their citizens can create a breeding ground for discontent and unrest. The manipulation of information, the spread of misinformation, and the erosion of trust in traditional media outlets further exacerbate these tensions. Political instability can manifest in various forms, from peaceful protests and civil disobedience to violent riots and armed conflict. In extreme cases, it can lead to the collapse of states, creating power vacuums that are exploited by extremist groups and criminal organizations. The threats facing our civilization are not isolated. They are deeply intertwined. Climate change can exacerbate economic inequality, fuel social unrest, and trigger mass migrations, putting further strain on already fragile political systems. Pandemics can disrupt economies, undermine social cohesion, and create opportunities for extremist groups to exploit fear and uncertainty. The interconnected nature of these threats makes them even more challenging to address. A failure to effectively respond to one challenge can create ripple effects that amplify other threats, leading to a cascading crisis that overwhelms our capacity to cope. This interconnectedness underscores the need for a holistic and integrated approach to global problem solving. We must move beyond siloed thinking and address these challenges in a coordinated and comprehensive manner, recognizing that solutions in one area can have positive spillover effects in others. Despite the daunting challenges we face, there is hope. Humans have a remarkable capacity for innovation, resilience, and cooperation. Throughout history, we have overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles, from devastating wars to deadly pandemics. The key to our success lies in our ability to work together. Collective action, both at the local and global levels, is essential to address the complex and interconnected challenges of our time. Governments, businesses, civil society, organizations, and individuals must come together to develop and implement solutions that benefit all of humanity. International cooperation is particularly crucial in addressing global challenges such as climate change and nuclear proliferation. These threats transcend national borders, requiring coordinated efforts and binding agreements to mitigate risks and ensure a safer future for all. Building a resilient future requires a fundamental shift in our thinking and our actions. We must move away from short-term, self-interested approaches and embrace a long-term, holistic perspective that prioritizes sustainability, equity, and the well-being of all people on the planet. This shift requires investments in education, science, and technology to develop innovative solutions to the challenges we face. It also requires a renewed commitment to democratic values, human rights, and the rule of law, creating a more just and equitable world where all people have the opportunity to thrive. Finally, it requires fostering a sense of shared responsibility and global citizenship, recognizing that we are all interconnected and that our individual actions have consequences for the collective good. The next 25 years will be a defining period in human history. The choices we make today will determine whether our civilization thrives or succumbs to the multitude of threats we face. The path forward is clear. We must embrace cooperation, innovation, and a shared commitment to building a more sustainable and resilient future. The challenges are daunting, but they are not insurmountable. We possess the knowledge, the resources, and the capacity for collective action to avert disaster and create a world where all people can live in peace, dignity, and prosperity. The future is not preordained, it is ours to shape. Let us choose wisely